The diplomatic meeting room on Station Alpha felt cold despite the heating systems running at full power. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat across from three alien beings who looked like they owned the galaxy. The NIGMA Empire representatives wore dark metal suits that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind masks that glowed with strange symbols. Sarah had prepared for this moment for months. Earth's first contact with an alien empire. The NIGMA delegation had arrived 2 weeks ago with a fleet of ships so large they blocked out the stars. Their message was simple. Earth would become a protectorate of the NIGMA Empire. Humanity would serve. Resistance was not allowed. The lead NIGMA representative spoke through a voice translator that made his words sound like grinding metal. Human Chen, your species will submit to NIGMA rule. We have studied your primitive technology, your small fleet, your weak defenses. You cannot resist us. Sarah looked at her notes, though she had memorized every word. Around the table sat military advisors, scientists, and other diplomats. Everyone knew what was at stake. The future of humanity hung on this conversation. We appreciate your offer, Sarah said, keeping her voice steady, but we must decline. Humanity chooses to remain independent. The NIGMA representatives made sounds that the translator interpreted as laughter. It was not a pleasant sound. The leader leaned forward. You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. This is an announcement. Your worlds will be harvested. Your people will work in our mines and factories. Those who resist will be eliminated. Sarah felt her heart racing but kept her face calm. She had trained for years as a diplomat. She knew how to hide fear. But this was different. These beings spoke of slavery and death like they were discussing the weather. I need to be very clear about something, Sarah said. She stood up slowly, her hands flat on the table. Humanity rejects your demands completely. We will not submit. We will not serve. And we will not be harvested. The NIGMA leader tilted his masked head. Your bravery is amusing, Human Chen, but bravery cannot stop our battle fleets. Your entire species has fewer ships than we have in this system alone. Sarah nodded. You may be right about our numbers, but I want to give you fair warning. Leave human space immediately. Do not return. Do not threaten our colonies. Do not harm our people. We will not warn you again. The silence that followed was broken by more of that terrible laughter. All three NIGMA representatives seemed to find her words hilarious. The leader stood up, towering over Sarah, even though she was tall for a human. You warn us? He said. A species that has barely learned to travel between stars warns the NIGMA Empire? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have destroyed entire civilizations. Your small blue planet will burn if you resist us. Sarah's military advisor, General Morrison, shifted in his seat. She could see him fighting the urge to say something. But this was her moment. Her choice of words would echo through history. I have delivered our message, Sarah said. Earth and all human colonies are under our protection. Any attack on human territory will be considered an act of war. We are prepared to defend ourselves. The NIGMA leader moved closer to the table. War? Against us? Human Chen, we have ships that can crack planets. We have weapons that can boil oceans. We have armies that stretch across the galaxy. What do you have? Sarah met his gaze through the glowing mask. We have determination. We have intelligence. And we have something you clearly lack. What is that, brave little human? Wisdom, Sarah said. The wisdom to know when to stop pushing. You should leave now while you still can. The NIGMA representatives exchanged what sounded like rapid conversation in their own language. The translator stayed silent during their discussion. Finally, the leader turned back to Sarah. Your species fascinates us, Human Chen. Most primitive races beg for mercy by now. Some offer tribute. Others simply hide and hope we forget about them. But you threaten us. You warn us. You tell us to leave. I am not threatening you, Sarah said. I am informing you. There is a difference. Indeed there is, the leader said. Very well. We will give you 1 rotation of your planet to reconsider. Gather your leaders. Show them our fleet. Let them explain to you what resistance means. Tomorrow we will return for your final answer. Sarah shook her head. You will have our answer now. We reject your demands. We claim sovereignty over human space, and we warn you to leave immediately. The NIGMA leader stepped back. Then you have chosen extinction, Human Chen. We have seen your technology. We know your capabilities. You have perhaps 50 ships capable of space combat. We have brought 10,000 to the system alone. Our main fleet contains millions of vessels. I understand your position, Sarah said. Do you understand ours? Your position is hopeless. Sarah gathered her papers and stood up. Our position is final. Humanity will not submit to the NIGMA Empire. We will defend our independence with everything we have. And we warn you one last time, leave human space now. The lead NIGMA representative made a gesture that his companions seemed to understand. All three began moving toward the door. Very well, Human Chen. You have made your choice. Tomorrow we begin the harvest of your worlds. Your people will learn the price of defying the NIGMA Empire. As they reached the door, Sarah called out, "Wait!" They turned back. "I want to make sure you understand something," she said. "This conversation will be remembered. Your decision to ignore our warning will be studied by future generations. Make sure it is the legacy you want." The NIGMA leader paused at the doorway. "The only legacy will be the ashes of your civilization, Human Chen, and the lesson it teaches other primitive species about the folly of resistance." After they left, the room fell silent. General Morrison was the first to speak. "Think they bought it?" he asked. Sarah sat down heavily. "They think we are primitive and weak. They think our warning is meaningless. They think we have 50 combat ships." "Good," Morrison said. "Admiral Park says the fleet is ready. Operation Sleeping Giant can begin as soon as they make their first aggressive move." Sarah looked out the viewport at the NIGMA fleet surrounding the station. Massive ships that blotted out the stars. An armada that could destroy Earth's major cities in hours. But they had no idea what humanity had really been building in the dark spaces between the stars. "They had their chance," Sarah said quietly. "We warned them once. That is more than they deserve." 3 months had passed since the diplomatic disaster at Station Alpha. The NIGMA Empire had withdrawn their main fleet but left behind what they called monitoring vessels. These ships watched human colonies and trade routes like hungry predators. Everyone knew they were waiting for orders to attack. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching her sensor screens with growing concern. Her ship was patrolling the outer edge of human space near the colony world of New Darwin. The colonists there had been reporting strange sightings for weeks. Ships that appeared on sensors then vanished. Probe signals that cut off suddenly. "Captain," her tactical officer called out. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 6. It is moving fast toward the colony." Elena moved to the main display. A single ship was approaching New Darwin. Its design was clearly NIGMA, sleek, dark, and larger than her destroyer. The vessel was not broadcasting any identification or responding to hails. "Battle stations," Elena ordered. The bridge lights dimmed to red as her crew prepared for combat. "Communications, send a warning to that ship. Tell them they are entering human space without permission." The communications officer tried several times to reach the NIGMA vessel. No response. The alien ship continued toward New Darwin at high speed. "Captain," the sensor operator said, "the colony is detecting 3 more ships approaching from different vectors. They are not showing up on our long-range sensors." Elena felt ice in her stomach. 4 NIGMA ships against her 1 destroyer. The math was not good, but she had orders. No hostile vessels were allowed near human colonies. "Helm, intercept course for the lead ship. Maximum speed." The Defiance turned toward the approaching NIGMA vessel. Elena knew her ship was outgunned, but she also knew something the NIGMA Empire did not. Humanity had not been idle during the 3 months since Station Alpha. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the NIGMA ship," the communications officer reported. On screen, the face that appeared was different from the masked diplomats at Station Alpha. This NIGMA looked more like a soldier. Scars covered his gray skin, and his eyes held the cold look of someone who had killed many times. "Human vessel," he said through the translator. "You will withdraw immediately. We are conducting a survey of this system for future mining operations." Elena stepped forward. "This is Captain Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiance. You are in violation of human territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The NIGMA commander showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. "Consequences? Your small ship against our task force? Human, you should flee while you still can." "This is your final warning," Elena said. "Leave human space now." The transmission cut off. Elena watched as the NIGMA ships moved into attack formation. They were testing human resolve, seeing how much fight Earth really had in them. "All ships," Elena said into her command microphone. "Execute Order 77. Around New Darwin, space seemed to shimmer. 12 human ships decloaked simultaneously. They had been waiting, hidden by new stealth technology that made them invisible to NIGMA sensors. The alien task force suddenly found themselves outnumbered 3-1. "This is Admiral Chen aboard the UES Vengeance," a voice came over the fleet communication channel. "NIGMA vessels, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from human space." Elena smiled. Admiral David Chen, Ambassador Sarah Chen's younger brother, had been waiting for this moment. His task force had been hidden in the asteroid belt around New Darwin for 2 weeks. The NIGMA commander appeared on screen again. His expression had changed from confident to worried. "Human fleet, you are making a grave mistake. We are exploratory vessels. Any attack on us will bring the full might of the NIGMA Empire down on your heads." 20 seconds, Admiral Chen replied calmly. "Captain," Elena's tactical officer reported, "the NIGMA ships are powering weapons." "So are we," Elena said. "Lock onto the lead vessel. Prepare to fire." The countdown reached 0. The NIGMA ships opened fire first, their energy weapons striking the human vessels with brilliant flashes of light. But the human ships had been designed specifically to counter NIGMA technology. Their shields held. The return fire was devastating. Human weapons that the NIGMA Empire had never seen before tore through alien hull plating like paper. Within minutes, 2 of the 4 NIGMA ships were disabled and drifting. "Cease fire," Admiral Chen ordered. "NIGMA vessels, you will withdraw immediately. Take your damaged ships and leave human space. Do not return." The 2 remaining NIGMA ships moved to assist their damaged companions. Elena watched as they struggled to tow the wrecked vessels away from New Darwin. The alien commander appeared on screen one more time. "This will not be forgotten, human. The NIGMA Empire will return with greater force. Your resistance only delays the inevitable." "Maybe," Admiral Chen replied, "but you have been warned. Spread the word to your superiors. Humanity will defend its territory." As the NIGMA ships limped away from New Darwin, Elena felt a mixture of pride and worry. They had won this encounter, but it was just the beginning. The NIGMA Empire would not accept defeat so easily. Over the following weeks, similar encounters happened throughout human space. Small NIGMA probing forces would approach human colonies or trade routes. They would find human ships waiting for them, ships that should not exist according to NIGMA intelligence reports. Each engagement followed the same pattern. The NIGMA forces would demand submission. The humans would refuse and order them to leave. When the aliens attacked, they would find themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by technology they did not understand. But the most disturbing part for the NIGMA Empire was not the losses. It was the disappearances. Entire NIGMA survey fleets would simply vanish without sending any distress signals. Search parties would find nothing but empty space where their ships should have been. Admiral Kekstar of the NIGMA 3rd Fleet sat in his command chamber, reading the latest reports. In 3 months, the Empire had lost over 50 ships to these mysterious human encounters. The High Command was beginning to ask difficult questions. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported, "we have analyzed the human weapons technology from the recent engagements. Their energy output exceeds our projections by 300%. Their shielding systems are completely unknown to us." Kekstar studied the data. According to their original intelligence, humans had primitive technology, simple fusion rockets and basic energy weapons. But the ships they were fighting used technology that seemed impossible for such a young species. "How long have they had this technology?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our surveillance of human space was limited. We focused on their major population centers and military installations. It is possible they have been developing advanced systems in secret." Kekstar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: doubt. The NIGMA Empire had built its power on superior technology and overwhelming force, but these humans seemed to be prepared for war in ways that made no sense. "Send a message to High Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcement of our border fleets, and recommend a full intelligence review of human capabilities." As his officer left to send the message, Kekstar looked at the star maps showing human territory. Such a small region of space, such a young species, but they were fighting like they had been preparing for this war for generations. Perhaps it was time for the NIGMA Empire to take the human threat more seriously. The war room deep beneath Geneva buzzed with activity. Holographic displays showed the positions of fleets across human space, while analysts tracked the movements of NIGMA forces along the border. Admiral Sarah Chen, promoted after her diplomatic success, stood before the largest display studying enemy deployment patterns. "Ma'am," Captain Torres approached with a datapad. "Intelligence reports that NIGMA High Command has approved Operation Iron Fist. They are moving their 7th and 9th fleets toward the Centauri system." Sarah nodded grimly. Intelligence had been expecting this escalation. The NIGMA Empire was tired of probing attacks and mysterious losses. They were preparing for full-scale invasion. "What is the enemy strength estimate?" "Over 8,000 ships, ma'am. Everything from destroyers to dreadnoughts. They also have 40 troop transports and mobile mining platforms." Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. As Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces, she was responsible for protecting 3 billion people across 12 colony worlds. Against an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. Time until they reached Centauri? 72 hours at current speed. Sarah turned to face the assembled officers. Representatives from every branch of human military stood around the holographic table. These men and women had trained their entire lives for a war they hoped would never come. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, "the NIGMA Empire has committed to total war. They believe they can crush human resistance through overwhelming force. They are about to learn how wrong they are." General Morrison stepped forward. "Ma'am, all ground forces are in position. Every colony has underground bunkers and hidden weapon caches. If they land troops, we will make them pay for every meter." "Good, Admiral Park." The fleet commander activated new displays showing ship positions throughout human space. "Operation Sleeping Giant is ready to execute. All stealth fleets are in position. The NIGMA Empire thinks they are facing our patrol ships and colony defense forces. They have no idea what is waiting for them." Sarah smiled for the first time in days. The NIGMA Empire was about to discover that humanity had learned something important from studying their conquest of other species. Every previous victim had tried to match NIGMA strength with strength. They had built larger fleets and stronger weapons, only to be overwhelmed by superior numbers. Humanity had chosen a different approach. "Dr. Yamamoto," Sarah called to the head of research and development. "Status of our special projects?" The elderly scientist adjusted his glasses. "Project Prometheus is fully operational. We have successfully infiltrated 17 NIGMA worlds with our agents. Project Pandora is also ready. The virus programs have been distributed to key NIGMA systems. And Project Nemesis? The weapons platforms are in position throughout NIGMA space. They have been dormant for 6 months, designed to look like space debris. When activated, they will target critical infrastructure across the Empire." Sarah looked around the room at the faces of her officers. They all knew the scale of what they were attempting. Humanity was not just defending their own space. They were planning to strike at the heart of the NIGMA Empire itself. "One last item," Sarah said. "Project Ghost Ship." Admiral Park grinned. "Ready and waiting, ma'am. The NIGMA Empire is about to meet our newest vessels, ships they definitely did not see coming." 72 hours later, the NIGMA 7th and 9th fleets dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Annihilator, studying the tactical displays. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "detecting 47 human vessels in defensive positions around Centauri Prime. Standard patrol ships and system defense platforms." Kextar nodded. The numbers matched their intelligence estimates. The humans had deployed their entire local defense force to protect their most important colony world. It would not be enough. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Begin the attack. Show these humans the price of defying the NIGMA Empire." 8,000 NIGMA ships moved into the Centauri system like a dark tide. Their formation was perfect. Their weapons charged, their crews confident. They had done this 1,000 times before. But as they approached the human defense line, something impossible happened. Space around the NIGMA fleet began to shimmer and distort. Ships appeared from nowhere. Not 47 human vessels, but over 300. Massive battleships that rivaled NIGMA dreadnoughts in size. Carriers launching fighter squadrons. Destroyers armed with weapons that glowed with unfamiliar energy. "Where did they come from?" Kexter demanded. "Unknown, sir. They are not showing up on any of our sensors until they decloak." The human fleet was not just larger than expected. It was using technology that the NIGMA Empire had never encountered. Ships that could become invisible. Weapons that cut through NIGMA shields like they were not there. Fighter craft that moved faster than anything the Empire had built. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." On screen, the face that appeared was familiar. Admiral David Chen, the human who had defeated their probe fleets at New Darwin. But now he wore the uniform of a fleet commander, and his expression was coldly professional. "Admiral Kextar," David said, "you have entered human space with hostile intent. This is your final opportunity to withdraw. Leave Centauri system immediately or face the consequences." Kextar stepped forward. "Human Admiral, you are outnumbered 25 to 1. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." David's expression did not change. "Admiral, you are looking at our Centauri defense fleet. This represents approximately 2% of our total military capability. I strongly advise withdrawal." "Impossible," Kextar said. "Our intelligence shows you have fewer than 200 ships total." "Your intelligence is 3 years out of date," David replied. "Humanity has been busy. Last chance, Admiral. Withdraw or be destroyed." Kextar cut the transmission. 2% of human military strength? It had to be a bluff. But the ships surrounding his fleet were real, and they were armed with weapons that should not exist. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Attack formation. We will crush these humans and take their technology." The Battle of Centauri lasted 14 hours. When it was over, the NIGMA 7th and 9th fleets had ceased to exist. Of 8,000 ships, fewer than 200 escaped to hyperspace. The rest were destroyed, captured, or drifting as wreckage in the void. Admiral Kextar's flagship was among the captured vessels. As he was led to a human detention cell, he could not understand what had happened. The NIGMA Empire did not lose battles. They had superior technology, superior numbers, superior training, but the humans had been ready. More than ready. They had been planning for this war since first contact. Every system they had shown the NIGMA Empire was obsolete. Every weakness they had displayed was carefully crafted deception. As the news of the defeat reached NIGMA High Command, panic began to spread through the Empire. If humans could destroy 2 full fleets, what else were they capable of? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. The emergency session of the NIGMA High Council convened in the deepest chamber of the Imperial Palace on Nexus Prime. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a table carved from a single piece of black crystal. The mood was darker than the stone itself. Supreme Chancellor Vexkoth activated the holographic display showing the battle damage at Centauri. The numbers were devastating. 2 entire fleets destroyed in a single engagement. Over 1 million NIGMA military personnel dead or captured. The worst defeat in Empire history. How is this possible? Chancellor Mordon demanded. Our intelligence showed that humans possessed primitive technology. Chemical rockets. Simple energy weapons. They should not have been able to defeat a single destroyer, much less 2 full fleets. Our intelligence was wrong, admitted Director Zarkes of Imperial Intelligence. The humans have been systematically deceiving us since first contact. Every technology demonstration was carefully staged. Every weakness we observed was deliberately shown to us. Chancellor Vexkoth stood slowly. At over 9 feet tall, he towered over the others even when they were standing. His species had evolved from apex predators, and his presence filled the room with an aura of barely controlled violence. "You are telling me," he said in a voice like grinding stone, "that we have been outmaneuvered by a species that discovered fire only a few thousand years ago?" Director Zarkes activated new displays showing human ship designs captured during the battle. "These vessels utilize technology we do not understand. Their hulls are composed of materials we cannot identify. Their weapons operate on principles that our scientists say are impossible." "Then our scientists are incompetent," Chancellor Mordon snarled. "Nothing is impossible. These humans are flesh and blood just like any other species we have conquered." "Are they?" Director Zarkes asked quietly. "We are receiving reports from across the Empire. Human agents have been identified on 47 worlds. Some have been operating undercover for years. They speak our languages perfectly. They understand our technology. They have been studying us while we ignored them." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The NIGMA Empire had always relied on surprise and overwhelming force to conquer new territories. But the humans had turned those advantages against them. Chancellor Vexkoth moved to the main display. "What is the current status of our fleets?" "We have 18 fleets remaining," reported Admiral Tekfar. "But morale is problematic. Word of the Centauri defeat has spread throughout the military. Some commanders are requesting permission to withdraw from human border regions." "Withdraw?" Chancellor Vexkoth's voice rose to a roar that echoed off the crystal walls. The NIGMA Empire does not withdraw. We will mobilize every ship, every soldier, every weapon in our arsenal. These humans will learn what happens when they defy us. But even as he spoke, alerts began flashing on the communication panels around the chamber. Emergency messages were coming in from across the Empire. "Sir," the communications officer said hesitantly, "we are receiving distress calls from multiple sectors. Balin Prime reports that their orbital defense platforms have malfunctioned. The Helix Mining Consortium says their automated systems have been compromised. The Fourth Fleet at Koros reports that their ship's computers are behaving erratically." Director Zarkes was already working at his personal console, pulling up reports from across the Empire. His expression grew more concerned with each new piece of information. "Chancellor," he said, "I believe we are under coordinated attack. These are not random malfunctions. Someone has infiltrated our computer networks on a massive scale." As if summoned by his words, the main display in the chamber flickered and changed. Instead of showing NIGMA fleet positions, it now displayed the face of a human woman. She wore the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her expression was coldly professional. "Greetings, NIGMA High Council," Ambassador Sarah Chen said. "I am Ambassador Chen of the United Earth Diplomatic Service. You may remember me from our conversation at Station Alpha." Chancellor Vexkoth stepped toward the display. "Human? How did you access our secure communications?" Sarah's expression did not change. "We have been monitoring your networks for some time, Chancellor. Your security systems are quite sophisticated, but they were designed to keep out other species of your technological level. Not us. Impossible. Our encryption is unbreakable." "Nothing is unbreakable, Chancellor. It simply requires the proper approach, which brings me to the purpose of this communication. I am here to offer the NIGMA Empire one final opportunity to end this conflict peacefully." Chancellor Mordan laughed harshly. "You offer us terms? After destroying 2 of our fleets?" "Yes," Sarah said simply, "because what happened at Centauri was just the beginning. As we speak, human operatives throughout your empire are activating systems that have been dormant for months. Your military networks are being compromised. Your critical infrastructure is being shut down. Your slave worlds are receiving weapons and support for their liberation movements." New alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Power grids failing on industrial worlds. Military bases losing communication with their fleets. Slave populations rising in coordinated rebellion on dozens of planets. "This is what you wanted," Sarah continued. "You chose war when you could have chosen peace. You ignored our warning when you could have heeded it. Now you will face the consequences of that choice." Chancellor Vexkoth was studying the tactical displays with growing horror. Across the Empire, the carefully maintained systems that held their civilization together were collapsing simultaneously. It was not random chaos. It was surgical precision applied on a galactic scale. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Complete withdrawal from human space," Sarah said. "Immediate cessation of all hostile activities against human colonies and shipping. Dissolution of your slave empire and liberation of all conquered peoples. And war crimes trials for your leadership. Unacceptable. The NIGMA Empire will never surrender to primitives." Sarah nodded as if she had expected that response. "Then you have chosen the path of total war, so be it. What happens next is on your hands, Chancellor." The transmission ended, leaving the High Council staring at a blank screen. For a moment no one spoke. Then Admiral Tekvar activated his command console. "All fleets, immediate recall to Empire core worlds. Emergency defensive posture. Prepare for—" His words were cut off as every screen in the chamber went dark. Emergency power kicked in, but the main computer systems remained offline. Throughout the palace, throughout Nexus Prime, throughout the Empire, the lights were going out. In the darkness of the High Council chamber, Chancellor Vexkoth finally understood the trap they had fallen into. The humans had not been preparing for a defensive war. They had been preparing to destroy the NIGMA Empire completely, and they were very good at it. 6 months after the Battle of Centauri, the NIGMA Empire was dying. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of her flagship, the UES Retribution, watching the final assault on Nexus Prime. The Empire's capital world hung in space before them, its orbital defenses shattered, its surface cities burning. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez reported, "all enemy resistance in this sector has ceased. The remaining NIGMA ships are requesting permission to surrender." Sarah nodded without taking her eyes off the planet below. Granted. Take their crews into custody and secure their vessels. Make sure the prisoners are treated according to the Accords. It was important to her that humanity conduct this war properly. Even against an enemy as brutal as the NIGMA Empire, they would maintain their principles. The humans fighting this war were not conquerors. They were liberators. "Ma'am," the communications officer called out. "We are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It is Chancellor Vexkoth." On screen. The face that appeared was haggard and defeated. The proud Chancellor who had once ruled half the galaxy now looked like an old, tired being who had lost everything he cared about. Behind him, Sarah could see the ruins of what had once been the Imperial Palace. "Admiral Chen," he said, his voice hoarse. "I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender." Sarah studied his face for a long moment. This being had ordered the deaths of billions, had enslaved entire species, had ignored humanity's warnings and chosen war instead of peace. Part of her wanted to reject his surrender and finish what they had started, but that was not who humanity chose to be. "Chancellor," she said finally, "you have my attention. What terms do you propose?" "Complete and unconditional surrender of all NIGMA military forces, dissolution of the Empire government, cooperation with war crimes tribunals. In exchange, I ask only that you spare the civilian populations of our worlds." Sarah was silent for a moment. Around her bridge, the officers watched and waited. This moment would define how the galaxy remembered humanity's first war. "Your terms are acceptable," she said. "But I have additional requirements. All slave species will be immediately granted independence. All conquered peoples will be offered support in rebuilding their civilizations, and the NIGMA species themselves will be offered a place in the new galactic community, provided they renounce their imperial ambitions." Chancellor Vexkoth's eyes widened. "You would offer us mercy? After what we have done?" "We warned you once that we would defend ourselves," Sarah said. "We never said we would exterminate you. Humanity believes in justice, not revenge." The transmission ended, and Sarah turned to face her bridge crew. These men and women had fought alongside her through 6 months of the most sophisticated military campaign in galactic history. They had earned this victory through intelligence, planning, and sacrifice. "Admiral," Dr. Yamamoto's voice came over the intercom from the science section. "I am receiving confirmation from our deep space monitoring stations. The last NIGMA fleet has surrendered at the Kepler system. All organized resistance has ended." Sarah felt something she had not experienced since this war began. Peace. Not just the absence of fighting, but the knowledge that the threat to humanity was truly over. "Begin Phase 3 operations," she ordered. "Humanitarian aid to all former NIGMA territories, technical assistance to newly liberated worlds, and full investigation of war crimes for prosecution." Over the following months, the transformation of NIGMA space proceeded with the same efficiency that had characterized the human war effort. The vast slave empire that had dominated this region of the galaxy for centuries was dismantled piece by piece. On world after world, human ships arrived not as conquerors, but as liberators. They brought medical supplies to planets where the NIGMA had worked the populations to exhaustion. They provided technology to species whose development had been deliberately stunted to keep them weak. They offered protection to former slave worlds that feared revenge from NIGMA loyalists. The trials of NIGMA war criminals took place on Harmony Station, a massive space platform built specifically for the purpose. Humanity insisted that justice be administered fairly and transparently. Every defendant received qualified legal representation. Every piece of evidence was examined carefully. Every victim was allowed to testify. Chancellor Vexkoth himself was the last to be tried. The evidence against him was overwhelming, but he was allowed to present his defense and call witnesses on his behalf. In the end, he was sentenced to life imprisonment on a minimum security world, where he would spend his remaining years helping to rebuild one of the civilizations his empire had destroyed. But perhaps the most significant development was the formation of the Galactic Liberation Alliance. Former NIGMA slave species joined with humanity to create a new form of interstellar government, one based on voluntary cooperation rather than conquest, one that protected the rights of all sentient beings regardless of their species or technological level. The NIGMA species themselves were offered membership in the alliance, most accepted, eager to build a new future for their people. The younger generation especially embraced the opportunity to explore the galaxy as explorers and scientists rather than conquerors. 2 years after the war ended, Ambassador Sarah Chen found herself back where it all began. She stood in the same diplomatic meeting room on Station Alpha, but now it was filled with representatives from dozens of species, former slaves and former masters working together to build something better. General Morrison, now retired, had come to visit the station. He found Sarah on the observation deck watching the ships of the Galactic Liberation Alliance conduct peaceful patrols of the system. "Any regrets?" he asked. Sarah considered the question carefully. The war had cost hundreds of thousands of human lives. Entire NIGMA worlds had been devastated by the fighting. The galaxy would be recovering from the conflict for generations. "No," she said finally. "We warned them once. We gave them every opportunity to choose peace. They chose war instead. And we chose to win it properly," Morrison said. "Could have been a lot messier." Sarah nodded. They had studied the history of every major galactic conflict. Most ended with the complete destruction of one side or the other. Victorious species typically enslaved or exterminated their defeated enemies. It was the pattern that had repeated throughout the galaxy for millions of years. Humanity had chosen to break that pattern. "Admiral," a young ensign approached with a message pad. "Transmission from Earth Central Command. The President wants to discuss the Andromeda exploration proposal." Sarah took the pad and scanned the contents. Humanity was already looking beyond their own galaxy, seeking new worlds to explore and new species to befriend. The war against the NIGMA Empire had taught them that they were not alone in the universe, but it had also taught them that they were strong enough to protect what they valued. As she walked back toward the command center, Sarah reflected on the lesson the galaxy had learned. Humanity had proven that it was possible to be both powerful and merciful. That strength could be used to protect rather than conquer. That even the most brutal empire could be defeated by those who fought for the right reasons. The NIGMA Empire was gone. In its place stood dozens of free worlds working together to build a better future. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet, whose people had kept their promise. They had warned their enemies once. When that warning was ignored, they had responded with overwhelming force. But when victory was achieved, they had chosen mercy over revenge. It was a lesson the galaxy would remember for a very long time. The children of Earth had grown up to become protectors of the innocent and guardians of the peace. They had proven that sometimes the youngest species could teach the oldest civilizations new ways to live, and in the end, that might have been the most important victory of all.